Parliament. This entire scandal is rotten to the core. We have in front of us what I think would have to be the most clear-cut example I have ever seen of a minister misleading the House. Now, if we want to work through an argument to say that the minister has not misled the House, we have to presume that a document that was never altered on the website, where there is metadata establishing that has never been altered, where you can go to the records that are kept, the public archives which are kept, which show, if you check on the 27th of March, the 20th of April, the 19th of June and the 20th of October, it always had the correct figures. But somehow, magically, that exact moment that the minister's office accessed the document, that at that moment it contained figures that it never contained before, never contained after, on a document that was never altered. Now, that is the argument from the minister. Now, there are very few standards these days that government ministers get held to, and basically the last one is that a minister must not mislead the House. Now, the words were not, "I have been advised." The words were not, "to the best of my understanding." The words were, from the minister, an assurance to the House. The document was drawn directly from the City of Sydney's website. Now, on all the public evidence, that cannot be true. It simply cannot be true. On all the public evidence. And yet that assurance was given. Now, it wasn't given on a day when the minister wandered into Parliament with no idea that he was going to be asked about this, because the scandal had already been published. It had already been published overnight that the figures he had supplied to the City of Sydney in his letter were wrong. I mean, you only had to look at them to say they were pretty extraordinary numbers that were in his letter. But he was completely forewarned from the media that it was a fair chance this question was going to be asked of him on the floor of Parliament. And he turned up to the House, asked the questions that he had expected would come to him, and gave the assurance to the House, and I quote again, "The document was drawn directly from the City of Sydney's website." It simply cannot be true. It simply doesn't add up. And for someone who we are told, and from time to time gets reported, is one of the most talented members of the government. Now, that only tells us one of two things. It only tells us one of two things. Either that is true and it says something pretty depressing about the government, or that information was given to the media by the same person who published the words, "Fantastic work, well done, Angus."
I'm going with A.
It's A or B. It's A or B. It could be both. This is true. This is true. But there is behind this a pretty serious issue. Like, if a minister thinks that he can say something at that dispatch box that is demonstrably untrue, where it's not just a political contest, there is documentary evidence from his department, on the records online, from the organisation that the City of Sydney, where he claims it was their website that it came from. It is demonstrably untrue at every single level. His statement to the House was unequivocal. There was no hedging in his statement. And does he really think that the standards of Australian governance are so low now that that's okay? We will not get, because we haven't seen before, and I suspect we won't get for some time, I hope we don't get, a mislead as obvious and demonstrable as this one. If the standard of the government is that that's okay, it's okay to say something at the dispatch box during question time to the parliament and therefore to the whole of Australia that on every piece of public evidence looks a tremendous amount like a lie. That's what it looks like. On every piece of public evidence, are we at a point now where the government says, well, let's just wait for the media cycle to move on? Because this just doesn't say something about a deeply incompetent minister. I mean, about if there's any scandal floating around, if you just hear in the news one day, scandal in the government, you think, Minister for Emissions Reduction, fair bet. And most days you're right, not every day, but most days that's a fair place to land. But are we really at the point where even he's more than embattled. Embattled would be a step up for this minister. He could only dream of being embattled. He has been caught out. He has been caught out red-handed because he's got such a born-to-rule attitude. He thought he could just stand up with complete confidence and everyone would nod and admire him. Well, he's been caught out, and he has today. Today, under the rules of parliament and under the ministerial standards that are meant to exist, he has today to go to that dispatch box and tell the truth. He has today to go to that dispatch box and make clear exactly what happened. Someone created a doctored document. Someone created a forgery to embarrass a public official. Somebody did that. And we know from all the public evidence that that didn't start from the City of Sydney's website. We know from all the public evidence that that didn't come from where he says it came from. So the obligation is on the minister to tell the truth. And can I say the obligation is on the Prime Minister to demand that the ministerial standards be upheld. Because I advise those opposite, if the Prime Minister won't even demand his ministerial standards be upheld on this, on the most obvious demonstrable example anyone can remember, then there are no standards left. There are no standards left. And if that's what this government wants to become, well, we'll know by 7:30 tonight whether they have given up on the ministerial code completely.